am Roosevelt Sanders. My family was a family of 10 siblings, 7 boys, 3 girls. I'm practically in the middle, the first of the 5, the fifth of the first 5. Anyway, Blackshear, Alabama, that's where I was born at, and most of us. And it was kind of rough, but we made it. We had enough kids to play with. We didn't have no neighbors, so we couldn't borrow no kids to play ball with or play checkers with. And we made our own checkerboard out of pop tops and cardboard, the same cardboard we brought home with the groceries in it. What little bit there was, we mainly grew everything. Okra, peas, beans, peppers, squash, and pumpkins. Pumpkins and squash was our winter food. And my mom, she knew how to preserve everything. Matter of fact, I have some right here that I preserved not too long ago. And a lot of you would probably want to throw up if you know what it is, but what it is watermelon rind preserve. You do them the same way you do pears or any preserve you buy out of the store. And Mom used to do this. I used to watch her, so I unintentionally remembered everything she did. And they went very well on some of her fluffy, light, homemade biscuits. And if you didn't have the biscuits, well, you were in bad shape then. So most of the time we had the biscuits when we didn't have no preserves. But Mom was a smart lady, and so was Dad. And they had to know, when I say you po, you have to know. And they did know. They knew how to take care of us. My mom can look in your eyes and tell whether you're sick or not. And she would always say, boy, you look a little peaky. Go get that cod liver oil or that castor oil. I'm like, Mama, I ain't peaky, I'm all right. Boy, what did I tell you? Go do like I told you. And that was the end of that discussion. But lo and behold, one day we went walking, a bunch of us, and I think Bobby was the baby. And we walking along the road, no shoes, probably just short pants and no shirt. And lo and behold, there was this reptile in the road, which was a snake, and they call it a ground rattler. Somehow I stepped on the little rascal, and I froze because of fear. And I knew later on in life that if I hadn't froze, he wouldn't have got a chance to bite me. And so he bit me, and I stood there for a while. So one of my brothers said, did he bite you? And I said, yes. He said, can you kill it? No. So they had to come over and kill it because that's how frightened I was. And it was like the next day before I got to see the doctor, and my leg had swelled up so big, looked like it was gonna split open. Mom and one of my great aunties from across the branch, well, Mom stayed there, but she went home, but Mom doctored on me practically all night long. And everything I threw up was the color grass. I guess my whole system was poisoned then, so it was the next day before I got to go to the doctor. And through the Lord and my mom, I'm here today to talk about it. But it was one of those situations where fear can freeze you, because that's what it did to me that day as a little boy. And I never understood it, that fear would freeze you, until I got older, and then I was thinking back, and I knew just what had happened. Call it a ground rattler. But anyway, I made it. I couldn't go outside every day like my other brother and sister, where it was 2 of us under me, and they would always, the 3 of us would always hang out together. So they would go out playing and everything. But I couldn't go out until after 12, after the dew had melted, because they said if he get dew on that leg, he might lose it. So Mom told me, don't go outside until after 12, the dew be melted by then. So one day I did go out, and she hollered down and she said, Roosevelt, if you don't bring your butt in here, I'm gonna kill you. And I was thinking, I'm like, if she gonna kill me, I might as well stay out and play. But I would let her hear me thinking, I wouldn't say nothing like that to her, because I would get a whooping. as they said on Leave It to Beaver, our guy walloped. But she took care of us the best she could, her and Dad. And he always camped off in the woods doing woodwork and tip time. I know a lot of you young people don't know what that is. Just like a lot of you young people don't know about watermelon rinds and pear preserves and making jelly out of wild grapes and all that. But we ate out of the woods and out of the backyard quite a bit. And Mom made quilts for us to keep warm. But it was a task, I'm sure, for them. I wouldn't want to wear either one of their shoes. Matter of fact, I don't think I could. But it was good and bad. But we survived, and 8 of us are still here. We lost the oldest sister and one of the brothers not too long back, but 8 of us are still here. Yeah, the house, it was kind of airy. We had cardboard boxes on the wall to keep out some of the wind. It didn't keep out the cold though, nor the heat in the summertime. We had a spring that we got our water from, and Mom would get her drinking water from across the branch to our great outhouse out of a regular, not a regular pump, a pump that pumps it out of the ground. And speaking of the spring, I was hot, tired, and sweaty one day, and I went down to the spring to get me a drink of water. So I looked across the way in the spring, and that was 2 beady eyes backed up in a hole somewhat, peeping at me. So I say, well, I'm tired, I'm thirsty, and I'm hot. I gotta have some water. So I kept watching it, and it kept watching me. So when I got home, I told Mom, I said, Mom, there's something in the wall of the spring that was looking at me. And she said, oh, that's nothing but that old eel. You don't bother him, and he won't bother you. But it was just one of those things that she knew, but I wasn't gonna quit drinking that day. It had to bite me on the nose or something, but I had to have some water. Now the house, we had a heater in there. We had to get firewood in order to keep warm as much as we could. We would stand around the heater at night and get hot as you can and run and jump into bed. And that helped out a little, but you can't get your clothes too hot. And get into bed, and that helped out, like I said, a little bit. And in the fall and the winter, I would always somehow get into some poison ivy, get in firewood, because it's harder to see then. And it would break out all over me. And my sister, sometimes she would get into it also. She was the oldest one out of 10 kids. And but her and I seemed like the only 2 would ever get into the poison ivy. She didn't go in the woods too much, so must have been on the edge of the fence row or something. But anyway, everything was outside then, your water, your bathroom, what they used to call an outhouse, and believe me, it was out. And every once in a while, you have to move it to a different spot. You cover that up and move to a different spot. But that's the life it was back in the day. And you didn't complain that much. You just kept on living and kept on growing up as best as you could. And so we used to have to walk quite a ways to the bus stop, and your feet would get so cold because you had on all-star canvas gym shoes, mainly just cloth or canvas, whichever way you preferred, and rubber under the bottom that didn't last too long. And on the way to the bus stop, your feet would get very cold. And in springtime, it would start itching and aching. Lo and behold, I used to have frostbite, but I didn't know that. And it was kind of rough for a while until my feet would heal up. And that was in the springtime when it started warming up. But that was life, like I said, many years ago. Yeah, Dad used to take us out of school after we got a little age on our belt. Wasn't much, because I think I started either the 8th or 9th grade out in the woods. We would stay out of school a week at a time and go out and work with him, camp off at the Tem Time camp. A lot of people don't know they used to get turpentine from the pine trees. And there was cups on the pine tree, and they had 2 nails to hold them up and a flange to help direct the tar into the cup. And when he would do that himself, he would spray it with some type of caustic acid to help it run. And he would take the bark off with a gadget he had and put the cup there, and we would go to each tree, rake it in a 5-gallon bucket, and take it to a 55-gallon drum, pour it in that drum until you get it full, and go to another one. This took place all day long. We had a little time for lunch. And filling up barrels throughout the week. On Friday, most of the time, we got to go home. I think sometime we did work on a Saturday for a little while, but it was like a week at a time out of school. Mom didn't really like it, but there wasn't too much she could do about it because his mind was set. The boys are going to help me. First, the 2 oldest boys worked. Then when the oldest boy left, or the oldest son, that is. When the oldest son left, he dropped down to the next, the 3rd oldest son. And then when the 2nd oldest son left, he dropped down to me. And I worked out there with him for years. And I think in 1966, that was the end of me and my brother that I'm next to. That was the last time we had to work out there. And well, one reason for that is that Mom left, actually, May 18, 1966. She had to get better living quarters and a better life. Not just for her sake, but for us too. But Dad worked out there all his life, and he retired from that same job many years down the line. And he did retire and lived a few years after that, but it was hard-breaking work. A 5-gallon bucket with a lot of tar in it, what we used to call it. Gets pretty heavy, and it's getting even heavier when you're going up here with leather shoes on pine straw. There was a lot of slipping and sliding, and then you had to weight in one hand, and you had your paddle in the other hand that you rake out the tar into the bucket with a paddle. Metal mainly and wood handle. And the 4 oldest boys, we did that. Now my brother under me, he would just go out and have fun with Dad. He want to say he worked out there, but they were more or less partying. And that was years down the line. But like I say, that was part of life during those times. And a lot of black men worked in the turpentine camps for their living and to take care of their families. But you survive most of it.